Brennan finds it on the ground. Was he carried forward? No. Wilson, like a clock in the ocean, over his head. Oh, my word! What a goal!
The football world mourns the passing of broadcasting icon Dennis Cometti, a golden voice who gave so much to the game.
An SCG grudge match for openers. Sydney and Carlton ready themselves for battle in an air of hostility and anticipation.
And a revved-up Sunday awaits. The stakes rise after the checkered flag falls as the Saints and Magpies collide.
I said to the players today, can you help me? I'm on 360.
Are you aware of that conversation?
Yeah, I don't live under a rock.
The reality is now that the gloves are off, ball's fair and love more.
My job is pretty clear. Make Hawthorn win.
Wouldn't be very good at hide-and-seek pitch, I reckon. Marco Polo. Polo! Marco!
I can't have that. What do you want us to play worse?
When you caught my eye and Mustang.
I reckon it's just about the greatest prize that's ever happened in footy.
First round look at it, she said, there's a dent in that cup. And I had a bit of a look and sure enough there is.
There's a feverish excitement which is typically associated with the eve of the football season and the formal launch that's taking place, but it is tempered tonight by the passing of Dennis Cometti. Garry, you spent so many years with him on radio and television.
I was lucky and privileged enough to do that, Gerard, and I suspect I'm like a lot of people who have worked with Dennis over the journey. He's, he's such the breadth of radio and television that there'd be, I suspect, a whole host of people doing what I've been doing this afternoon and just sitting back and reflecting and remembering what a joy it was to be able to share a box with him. So we can touch on a few of the stories as we go through. He was at his absolute best when Channel 9 had the footy there for 5 years. That was just the height of professionalism. He was as good as anyone could be. And then I just can't believe he ended up at Triple M with us when we were all a bunch of idiots. And he used to just this statesman of the game would wander into the box and Spud and I just straighten up and it was like the headmaster had wandered in.
Yes, you conned him there, I think.
Yeah, that was a joy.
We'll get Andrew Dillon to lead the league's tribute shortly, and John Longmire and Adam Simpson return. Simo and Horse to make us smarter each Wednesday night. But our agenda does begin with the passing of the broadcast greats. He provided the soundtrack to a couple of generations of footy. Dennis Cometti passed away last night, but that golden voice will never be lost. He was inducted into the Australian Football Hall of Fame in 2020, and this was how friend and long-term colleague Bruce McAvaney encapsulated his contribution to footy.
Brilliant voice, the sense of humour, the one-liners, the capturing the moment, the longevity. Why wouldn't he be in the Hall of Fame?
How did you go in our Stars of the Past competition? Better than that, I hope.
Look, he popularised the game in some ways because he changed the way commentators went about their work. He created a cult following on a Friday night.
Here comes Bunny, wheels around, gathers the football. He's kicked a miracle.
It was a unique style that he had. It was slightly Americanised in some ways, but it was oh so intelligent and oh so funny.
Pleading his case like the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. The mark has been taken by umpire Garry. Garry by name, Garry by nature.
The golden voice, that beautiful voice that never seemed to crack, but when the emotion was there, he could go to another level again.
It's a main event in any stadium in the world. Jenna pursued by Rioli. Rioli can't go with him. Jenna wins the gold medal.
He had a sense of humour and a sense of timing that I think is unique.
It came up behind him like a librarian. He never heard him.
How do you work that out in the heat of the moment?
Wilson, like a clock in the ocean over his head. Oh, my word.
Well, there's a saying, the best ad-libs are well rehearsed, and so Dennis obviously had a game plan, but to be able to produce it when the moment arrives is a gift.
Goes down towards half forward. Look out! Oh, revolt, remarkable. They say it's easy to run downhill. Tell that to McIntosh.
How can you work that out unless you're a genius?
Right on the boundary line, Tudor. He will kick after the siren. There is no justice in football. That was the look on the face of Michael Martin.
He could respond to something that's happening in front of him that he would have had no idea, and yet seemingly sum it up perfectly.
Fairy tales do come true.
You know, when Tom Hawkins is lining up to maybe put another nail in the Hawthorn coffin, how do you get that moment just right?
Siren's gone. They've done it again. They've done it again, the Cats. How about that? The cat is still on the back.
And then you say to yourselves, how did they handle the big occasion? How did the grand final go? When the Western Bulldogs are going to win for the first time and it's your last ever call, how do you handle that?
The stadium holds its breath. It's a goal. And the western suburbs erupt.
And to see him almost at his finest, he didn't miss a beat. Every time the game went to another level, he went with it.
Pick him from behind. What a mark.
The one legacy that he'll leave above all the other things is that one-liner that summed everything up so brilliantly and made us all smile.
Going back is black, white and black, black and white. Doherty comes away, needed another colour. Timed it brilliantly. Can he top himself? He can't top himself. Centimetre perfect.
There are a lot of very good commentators, many that have come before Dennis, and there'll be a lot that come after him. But I really believe he's the benchmark. I think of all the people that have called the game, Dennis has created an aura about himself and an excellence that does stand, I think, alone. And for that, he should be very proud.
So many lines that live in the imaginations of footy fans. He was going to be a disc jockey when he started off in media, ended up the finest sports broadcaster and one of the finest that we ever had.
He had a bit of rock star about him. I was actually watching that, and normally we are paying tribute to players that have, you know, entertained us, and he holds a similar cachet, if you like. So I might ask you, because it's the players that you would be asking me about. For you as a commentator, I mean, this is a craftsman who knew and understood exactly what it was that he needed to deliver and then went about it. How do you view it?
There was a genius in what he did, and he had the two threads. He had the wicked sense of humour and the capacity to drop the right line at the right time, some of which I'm sure he crafted on planes from Perth and some that just occurred to him in the moment. And then he could surf the big moment of the game. The stadium holds its breath, the iconic moment of a grand final. So he was the dual threat. And then he would take it to Olympics. He had it for cricket. He ended up choosing footy over cricket, but he might have done 50 years on the test circuit internationally, but he chose to give himself to the Indigenous game that he loved. He played, he coached. Do you know when he was coaching in the Waffle, he would do commentary on other teams' games.
I thought you were going to say he did commentary while he was coaching.
So he would coach on Saturdays and then commentate
Really?
other games in the competition on Sundays.
That's big, Gerard.
Yes. What was it like to be in the box, in a car, on the plane with him for those years?
There was a security about it from a commentary point of view, which it didn't matter. If it got big, you were in the best hands for all the reasons that you've just alluded to. And that was Channel 9. You know, we tried to do it big, and I think we did a great job of that. But he was the man, like the cornerstone. Eddie was the showman, and then he was the credibility, if you like. And Dermot and I just were in awe. Dermot was never early. It was never on time for anything, and Dennis had about enough of that. And by about the third night on a Friday night footy when we're interstate, Dennis said, "No, I won't be waiting." And he ended up getting his own car. He took off. And then, you know, for whatever reason, he ended up at Triple M with us. And this is when, you know, we were at our sort of maddest and craziest, and he would have been the last bloke you'd think that could come into that environment. He never did the pre-game, which was all the carry-on, but it worked perfectly because we all respected the game enough that when he walked in, that was the sign to go, righto, Spud, all the silliness that we carried on with, and JB'd straighten up and we'd straighten up, and then he'd call it beautifully. So I don't know, today it occurred to me that I have been in a really privileged position to sit with one of the all-time greats, and yeah, it was I got a shock, to be perfectly honest. I wasn't aware. I knew he was in ill health, but I wasn't aware of how ill he was. So, obviously, thoughts and sympathies with the family and friends, but he will be well remembered. There's no question about this. This will be one of many. This is a great tribute, and there'll be one of many, I imagine, over the next couple of days.
Well, let's bring Andrew Dillon, the AFL's Chief Executive, into our conversation. He's presiding over the season launch in Sydney tonight. Andrew, it's great to have you back on 360.
Great to be with you tonight, Gerard, Gaz.
How would you describe Dennis Cometti's contribution to the game?
Oh, look, there's so many words that come to mind, Gerard, but I think the one that first comes is just immense. An immense contributor as a player, as a coach, but obviously as a broadcaster, where he brought so many magical moments to life with an unbelievable turn of phrase, which I think some of those turns of phrase will last in people's memories for a lifetime.
They absolutely will. Are you thinking about how he might be remembered in the coming days?
Yeah, look, it's all pretty raw at the moment, Gerard, but yeah, absolutely. You know, Dennis is a Hall of Famer. As I said, he played at state league level, coached at state league level, and just made such a great contribution. So we'll work through that, and there'll be a fitting acknowledgement for Dennis. Absolutely.
You're in Sydney, you have been all week. Boots on the ground. Have you been spreading the gospel of Aussie rules?
Been doing our best. Was out at the Rosehill Public School yesterday, seeing a whole bunch of boys and girls from grade 1 and 2 out at that public school, getting their first crack at AFL, and it was great to see all dressed up in their Giants uniforms, and Josh Kelly was out there helping them, you know, teach them a few of the skills of the game. So it's bit by bit up here, Gerard, but we're growing strongly.
It feels bigger for some reason, Dills. I'm not sure what it is, whether our counterparts up there in the NRL are becoming more vocal, but it does feel like this week is growing in importance for the game up in the northern states.
Yeah, look, it's a really good way we find to start the season, particularly in New South Wales and Queensland, because it just gets the awareness going a lot earlier up here, and we see that play out in terms of increased membership, increased attendances at games, and then just more people talking and more people registering for community footy as well, which is super important. And you know, the great thing also this year is that we can bookend round, you know, opening round with a big game at the G on Sunday as well.
So how will you measure the success or otherwise of opening round? Is it merely numbers?
Oh, look, I think it's a little bit of everything, but the numbers tell an objective story, and so we're going to see 4 really big crowds across New South Wales and Queensland, but it's a bit more qualitative than that as well. And you know, we want to see more boys and girls playing footy, and we're starting to see those registrations tick over now. So all those things are really important for us as we kick off the 2026 season.
Is there any angst from the northern states, given that the opening round was established to promote the game primarily in the northern states, and now we've got this game that's come back to Melbourne on Sunday night, albeit it's going to be a monster? How's that been received?
Oh, no, look, I mean, you know, our discussions with the 4 clubs in New South Wales and Queensland have all been positive. They're right behind opening round. It doesn't take any shine or any awareness off what we're doing up here, but I think it actually adds to the spectacle of opening round. And then, you know, we roll into a massive round 1, which will kick off with big crowds at the MCG again on next Thursday and Friday when Richmond play Carlton, and then the Bombers play the Hawks. So it's a really big week and a bit of footy coming up.
What are you hoping for on Sunday night? It's Grand Prix day, so there's a critical mass of people in Melbourne. It's the night before a public holiday in this city. What's possible?
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't want to put a number on it because I don't want to curtail it, but I think it'll be a number definitely in the 80s, which will be a massive crowd. It'll be St Kilda's biggest crowd for the year, because it's the one home game they have at the G. And I think, particularly given their pre-season form, I think there's a lot of excitement around what St Kilda's going to bring to the competition this year. And I think that only adds to the intrigue of this of Sunday night's game.
What about the intrigue of the weather up in the northern states? We had Josh Dunkley with us yesterday. He said it's been hosing down. It's going to come down in buckets. Given last year, are we a bit nervous?
Well, I was a bit more nervous this time last year, but I do think, yeah, it's going to rain a little bit up in Queensland, but, you know, we're not dealing with the aftermaths of a cyclone. So the games will go ahead, and, again, I think we'll see some really good footy with, you know, there are 2 big matchups in Queensland with, you know, Geelong taking on the Gold Coast, which, you know, could be a forerunner for who knows what towards the end of the year. And then, you know, the Lions playing the Bulldogs. And, you know, the Bulldogs have probably got a lot to prove after their finish up last year.
To the business of the day is, how resolute are you to reform the academy, the father-son picks, and restore a level of equalisation in the draft?
Yeah, look, competitive balance, Gerard, it's the bedrock of the success of the AFL. There's many things that go into it, but competitive balance is super important. And I think what we have seen over the last couple of years is our clubs have become more sophisticated. They've sort of worked their way through the draft bidding system. So what we want to make sure is that when there is that priority access given, whether it's a father-son, a Northern Academy player or a next generation academy player, that a fair price is paid under the system that we've got. And we had a good meeting with the Commission earlier today. We've got a few more tweaks to make, but we'll be making an announcement on that in the next couple of weeks. And as I said, that equalisation is so important to the success of our competition, and we want all of our fans to have hope.
As you said, the Commission met today. Are we a step closer to a twilight grand final? I'm sure it was on the agenda. It is always at this time of year.
Oh, look, any discussions about that will be, decisions of the Commission, and we'll run all of those decisions through our filter of our three focuses for this year, which are, what's best for the footy, what's best for our fans, and what's best for our future. And I imagine that will be a decision that'll be coming on the Commission's agenda pretty shortly.
Is there a time frame in terms of a decision and to let the rest of the public know?
Yeah, look, I think our next meeting of the Commission is in sort of late April, early May. I would imagine that there will be a decision made at that meeting.
And Craig Drummond has taken over as chairman today, so you sat with him at his first press conference. What's his determination, Andrew? What will he bring to the game?
Look, I think what he brings, and it's something that's really important, I think, at the AFL, is that deep understanding of the clubs. And we've got a number of commissioners who've had roles at clubs, but having someone like Craig who comes in with that really recent club experience, a little bit like what we've done with the executive with Tom Harley and Greg Swan coming in, that contemporary club experience and understanding I find is really important. And I know amongst many of Craig's attributes, that'll be one that he definitely brings to the table.
It's a big night. I've seen some heavy hitters sliding in behind you for the season launch in Sydney. You haven't snuck Snoop Dogg in there just to kick things off for the season?
No, I think Snoop had his time in the sun, and he did an amazing job last September. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be here tonight.
Andrew, thanks for your time and enjoy the evening.
Yeah, great to see you guys. Thank you.
Yesterday's news, Snoop. Would you slide the grand final time this year?
Yep. I've been a bit ambivalent about it all, but I think Craig Drummond's got the opportunity to go in and make a bit of a statement. And I don't know. I was always, I was a bit of a traditionalist, but I don't think we lose too much by going to a twilight grand final. I think there's got a sense of inevitability about it, and let's start fresh with a new commissioner. Make a brave choice. Cop a couple early. Wear a couple early, Gerard, and then move on.
It'll be a loss the day it's announced. It'll be a win when the impact of it is fully measured.
Yeah,
so
that might be 3 or 4
that
years
along
down
the way. Yeah. All right, let's get into what's in store for us. Sydney and Carlton. With 10 minutes to go in the trade period, the Blues called Charlie Curnow and told him he was likely to be stuck there. A lot has happened. It happened suddenly, and then it plays out in the full prime time tomorrow night as the dual Coleman medalist suits up against his old mates as the enemy.
We sort of put friendships aside and we go into combat against each other. And I'm sure there'll be some gamesmanship within that, but ultimately there's a bigger prize at hand, and that's what we're probably focused in on.
The narrative around it was that he wanted to go down to Geelong and get to Torquay, get out of the spotlight. Well, guess what? There's nowhere to hide Thursday night, SCG, with your old mob.
What we can't afford is obviously clearly make it about him. There's other things we need to achieve out of the game, and if we make it all about him, then we'll get really distracted.
It's not just about Charlie. Externally, we understand the narrative behind a lot of things, but, I think from his perspective and also ours, he's just one of 23 tomorrow night.
I don't want to see smiles and cuddles. If I sit out in front of the TV and watch that, if I was a Carlton fan, I'd be bitterly disappointed with that.
It's obviously be built up because that's the storyline people want to see.
It's what everyone will come for. It's really the only reason Sydney and Carlton, two teams who didn't make the finals last year, are playing on opening night. So it's got a little bit to live up to. Sold out SCG, or full house expected. It's going to start with a tribute to the Bondi victims and the terror attack that happened in the heart of Sydney. So it'll have an emotional build-up, and then we'll get to the season. The teams are in. The Swans are pretty well full strength. They've added 3, Roses, Curnow and Sarong, so they all are going to play. And Carlton is very different, as Michael Voss said. 7 new faces, the two debutants, Dean and Smith, on which so much rests, Florent, Hayward, Ainsworth, Reedy, Chesser, have all been purpose brought in, and they're going to play first up.
A lot changes in 12 months, doesn't it? So they only win 4 of their first 12 games under Dean Cox, which was a big surprise to all of us. And one of the men, I think nearly the most important man wasn't there, is in Errol Goulden. He comes back and they win 8 of their last 11. So they finished the season really strongly. They got 6, as good as 6 A graders, nearly as anyone in the comp, Gerard. So Grundy's in good nick. I watched him in the community series. He played really well. Well, let's throw Charlie in there on trust, and then you've got Goulden, Heaney, Warner, and Blakey. That is your top of the shelf stuff. So I think Sydney fans are going along there with great expectation. They got. I don't think they're delusions of grandeur, but they've got Buddy Franklin-type hype around the Charlie Curnow. I think that's built magnificently. The marketeers have gone to work well. Coxie's tried to play it down and just describe him as one of 23. No, he ain't Coxie. He's not just one of 23. And then you've got the other side of the coin, which is a Carlton team who are young and fresh and different, and I think privately feels slighted by the fact that he wanted out of their setup, having spent a hell of a lot of time there, and whether or not they've got the depth and the character to go after it and make him pay along the way, well, that is the big storyline for tomorrow night.
So retooled in personnel, retooled in the way that we've seen them play in the pre-season. The Blues get their first tests under the heat of opposition pressure. Are you a believer that the Swans spike? Because if they are going to, this is the sort of game at home that they simply have to tick off. Keeping in mind, Carlton have only won twice since 1994 at the SCG. It's a 2-18 record at the ground.
Right, I didn't know that. But my expectation is that Sydney win and win well. That's the way I'm looking at this, given the teams. And that's not a knock on the Blues. I think the Blues are going to take a little bit of time to find the system, and their form in the community series was great, but it's going to get stress tested in a big way at the SCG. And if they're going to be more aggressive and they want to take it on a bit more, the space on that ground can sometimes close in. It's not as small as people think, but it is when the pressure's on. What do you think?
Yeah, I expect Sydney, if they're going to be the team that is forecast, this is a win.
Yeah.
You've got to get the win and get your campaign underway. But I'm really excited to see how Carlton is going to go about it.
Yeah.
The intrigue at the end of the round, this is immense, I reckon. Collingwood and St Kilda are sort of perfectly drawn. The Saints are going to play in front of their biggest ever home and away crowd. They're a bit of a spruik in the way that they have looked. Collingwood have been well forecast as a slider. Whether you are wholly in on that is in the eye of the beholder. On Wednesday nights, Gaz, Maccas have this new terrific offer, 99 cents McDelivery. There's 99 seconds on a clock for you to deliver your best. Take us to Sunday night's matchup.
I think it's fantastic. I think the scheduling is enormous. The opening round, make of it what you will, but we've got a Melbourne, the city, who will have celebrated a worldwide event, and then to go, OK, and now let's turn it to our national game at the home of footy, the best sporting arena in the world. I think it's absolutely superb, and it's cherry ripe and to have these two here, because I'm not saying there's a whiff of desperation about it, but there is, because St Kilda want to go, and I admire a side who put it out there. I admire what they're doing. I admire the fact that they've opened themselves up and they've banged the table and they've picked a few fights over this and that, and then backed it up by paying big money for play. The supporters in the end don't care about the money, Gerard. They care about the 23 that run out there, and they're going to put a really formidable competitive team out there that's going to have De Koning, Silvani, Flanders and Ryan, and those 4 players make them better. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And then on the other side of it, you've got a team that played in a preliminary final. They played in a preliminary final, Collingwood. So it's just, everyone's just gone, oh no, Collingwood. They've played in a preliminary final. We know they're going to be short of Howe and Moore and a few others, but gee, they've got some talent running through there. And if you think that they're just sitting there going, oh, well, our time in the sun's gone, then you're sadly mistaken. So there's some history that goes way back between these two clubs. Doesn't matter. This Collingwood Football Club are better suited on big stage, or more familiar with big stages than anyone in the game, Gerard. They play on 80,000 for fun. This is new territory for this St Kilda side. This is the biggest home and away crowd they will ever play in front of. Let's find out about them.
Let's find out about them, indeed. There's just lashings of judgment that sit on this.
Of course there is.
Either way.
And you reckon it'll be severe. It'll be knee-jerk and severe.
It will. The overreactions will go full throttle. If you're on the couch on Sunday, Fox is your best friend here. You can start at 8:45 a.m. and go essentially all the way through to midnight. By the time our coverage finishes and the press conferences have been played, that is heavy-duty sport for you right there.
We'll get down to the shops early, load up, and don't move. That's better be my suggestion, Gerard. Don't move a muscle for the whole day.
All right, let's go a little deeper. As we learnt last year, Simo and Horse can teach us a thing or two about the footy that's been played and the prospects in store. Adam Simpson, John Longmire have experienced so much in footy together. They're back on 360 to make us smarter every week.
Post Malone, I was in the top 3% of Post Malone listeners a couple of years ago, so Post also gets a run.
Nice.
Pick that, Gaz, would you?
What's going on here?
Right, Simo, what's just
You got the Queen wave going.
I know exactly what's happening there.
What is it? Are you a lip reader?
Yeah, I am actually.
Okay, what have you got for us?
Play your role.
It's late change, AFL 360 desk out Whateley in Simpson.
Just want you to make sure you check out the back there, Gaz. I mean, Gerard might be tied up somewhere at the back there. I've just had some breaking news. I'm not on the past players WhatsApp.
But it's from the 2000s.
99 I retired, so I've just missed the cut.
You let one in, Gaz, you let them all in.
He's got the sunnies on his head, if you don't mind. Come on, man.
Last night I was with my people down there at the Australian Fashion Week.
This is not the first time the horse has gone out a little bit of fashion. There's a show called Yellowstone. And I flicked around and then I come across a new one, Longmire. Longmire alongside Yellowstone.
It was my anniversary today, which I didn't realise. I got the arse on this day last year.
With sympathy running heavily for Simon Goodwin yesterday.
Yeah, I did text him, welcome to the SAC Coaches Club.
What did you actually call your club?
Coaches got the arse club. Yes.
Congratulations on being the Jock McHale Medal presenter.
You know I'm the bridesmaid. You know I was the second phone call.
I did get a phone call, Gaz, and...
They have so much shared heritage, and a lot of it played out here at the desk last year.
Did it ever? So much so they got 2 segments tonight. They've demanded another couple of segments.
Adam Simpson, welcome back.
Good evening, boys.
The Sydney A-listers gathered at the season launch, so of course that's where we find John Longmire, just to the side of the red carpet. Hello, Horse, welcome back.
G'day, good to see you. Good to be back with everyone.
As Simo rightly pointed out, where's the sunglasses on top of your melon? It wouldn't be a bad place to put them at the minute.
Well, they're probably stretched a little bit from when I wore them last year. Brody Grundy stitched me up in absolute beauty, Gaz, so no sunnies this week.
Hey, I thought it was a great segment last year, and I thought we got close to all 4 of us. And I spoke to you, Horse, 6, 7, 8 times over the summer. I never heard from Adam once. Turns out he's had a 50th that Gerard and I didn't get invited to, so that's a contentious issue. And you have been invited to. It might have been, by the sounds of it, a good job we weren't there.
Yes, Garry, and that's right, Gerard. Sorry I didn't see you there, but I know what you're all thinking. You're all thinking that surely Simo's 10 years older than me, but he's not. He turned 50 a couple of weeks ago, and it was a great night. And by the time you pay airfares and you got your cabs and your accommodation, and it was a $2,000 or $3,000 sort of turnaround. And Spider Burton was there. I think it cost him $5,000 from Perth. And anyway. We were a bit hungry coming around 7 o'clock at night, and we thought we'd get a good feed, but unfortunately, this is all we got. A couple of cold sausage rolls.
Come on, surely
That
not.
was the 4th serving of the... That's not true, and it wasn't.
I just expected a bit more. I was looking for the sushi, and I was looking for the. It's an expensive weekend, Adam.
Well, it wasn't really a 50th. It was just the past players, a couple of boys getting together. That's from the start, and Horse got the 3 votes for the night.
Really?
He started fast. Couldn't get him off the phone later in the night. He looked a little bit worse for wear. I got a quick snapshot at the end of the night. Horse. So it was looking a little dusty, but no, it was a good drink together.
Yeah, right, the boys have done a bit of work in the off-season, Gerard.
This can't start already. I know it's a slow week, but we can't be doing this every week.
Start as you mean to continue. Right, the opening round and its place in Sydney. John, the boss has been there all week. You're a pretty good judge of the spreading of the gospel and the impact that's been had. Is this proving worthwhile?
Oh, I think so, Gerard. I mean, the cut-through up here is vital. I mean, unless you've lived here for a period of time, you really
it's hard to understand the concept of how competitive this sporting market really is. And we've got a aggressive couple of codes that you're competing against all the time. There's the most number of sporting teams in the world, or professional sporting teams in the world, are here, and so it's a really competitive market. You need to do something a little bit different to get some cut through, and what opening round has done is provided that, and it's been not only the game itself, which is going to be massive, but the build up to the week, having Andrew Dillon here for the whole week has been huge for the code to be able to get some traction and really get AFL football front of mind for people here in Sydney.
Has it been good in his own way to push back against the bluster of Peter V'landys a bit?
Well, Peter does a great job for rugby league. He's whether it's racing or rugby league, he's very aggressive, very much out there, and has a real crack at things. And so to be able to to get some of that, I guess, talk back towards AFL football and to put our case forward, I guess, in a very competitive market is really important to be able to do. So just having him out here for the week, having the AFL Commission up here, really important to be able to do that, and it just keeps the AFL football front of mind at the start of the season.
It's great that the campaign is on, and it's important that it's promoted. And the Carlton Footy Club is a mighty big footy club, and it needs propping up at times as well. So you've lent your expertise.
Wow.
I genuinely want to talk to you about this and the role that you have assumed there. I turned the television on last week and saw you in the coach's box. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a regular thing, but what is the task that you've undertaken with the Blues?
No, that won't be a regular thing. But I'm probably there. I'm there just to help Vossi be the best version of himself. So having a guy one out, one back, and an ear to lean on, I suppose, is my role, and help develop some of the assistant coaches as well. So there's more of a conversation around this particular night. I don't know how you found me there.
Shadowy figure.
But it was more the dynamics. So, for example, he's on the bench this year for the most part. What's the dynamics with the new coaching group in the box, and my experiences around how that works, and asking some questions that having someone outside the day-to-day process is where I can help out. So it's really not an on-field thing. It's more an off-field, people management, getting the best out of himself and making sure he stays aligned with his values.
How often are you at the club through the week?
It might be once or twice every couple of weeks. It might be once a week at the most, and it's normally off-site as well. So it's what I've noticed is the cultural piece. It's a very tight club, and from the changes they've made up top and around Vossi to the playing group, from what I've seen, they've had a good pre-season.
Is it too early to feel the outside figures who have always wielded power at Carlton, or not?
I haven't felt any of that. And sometimes that doesn't reflect your on-field performance. So all you can judge at the moment, what I'm seeing, is what's happening off-field, and it's well connected. They're aligned and they're ready to go. So what happens on-field now is it's over to the players.
Star forward comes to Sydney. It's always been a reliable formula in your city, John. What are your early impressions of Charlie Curnow?
I haven't had a lot to do with him, Gerard. I've seen him around the place and just had a real casual chat, just how you're enjoying the city. And from what I hear from him, he's just loving it. I mean, he loves his surfing and only being 10 minutes from the beach, as far as the Sydney Swans offices are concerned, it makes it just a really good lifestyle for him. He really enjoys that part of it. He enjoys being able to get to work and training hard and going to the meetings and doing all that, and then being able to go about his business, which is it's a common thread, I guess, from all of our players that move to Sydney. It's a common thread, but he's fitted in really well. He's really popular, good mates with all the players straight away, and so he's really looking forward to tomorrow night's game. It's going to be a beauty. I mean, obviously a bit of nerves attached to that, but it's a huge game for both football clubs, and he's going to be front and centre of it.
How do you go about coaching against him, both of you? A bit harder for you, Horse, and you might be privy to some stuff. But what do you expect the atmosphere to be like at the start as this game unfolds?
It's probably a bit old school to say we're going to put the bullseye. I mean, we've all had games back in the day when there's a bullseye on someone, and they're the target player.
Too obvious? They go the other way and ignore.
I've got no idea. I haven't spoken to
what would you do?
I'd let it go. there's some things that happen that I've got no idea about. But from a playing point of view, this is the locker room thing. I don't think it's really from a club point of view and from a planning point of view. It's how do we stop him kicking 5?
Yeah.
But from a on-field relationship point of view, it's over to the players. But you wouldn't want to crossing the line to the point where you're taking your focus off the game.
I've heard both coaches, Chris Scott I've had a bit of time with, who he wouldn't enter in any of this at all, whereas Kenny Hinkley would build 3 days' worth of target practice on him in the lead-up. Which way do you think it'll go, Horse?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Kenny Hinkley. We played Port Adelaide a few years ago, and I think Kenny, afterwards we found out, I think Kenny might have said to the players not to say anything to Peter Laddams. It was the first time that we'd played against Port with Peter in the team. And it actually went the other way. It was actually, I think he was expecting a little bit of fire and brimstone, but it went the other way. And so it's sort of a bit of a different tactic for him. So I think you've got to know the sort of player, the person that Charlie is. I tend to agree with Simo. I wouldn't be going near it too much and just letting things unfold naturally without necessarily building up. The build-up's big enough as it is. You probably don't need any extra.
Sydney, how do you see them, John? Gaz made the case a little earlier on as you studied the back half of their season when they were fully stocked, and it was far more impressive than the overall record looked. Do you expect them to come roaring back?
Yes, and to be short in an answer with that, I think that's what I expect them to do if they keep their best players fit. I mean, if the team stays fit and healthy like it was in the second half of the year and your best players are available, I think the talent's there. I mean, the first half of the year last year, we were decimated by injuries the first half, and when the better players came back in the team and played regularly in the back half of the year, the results were there and we came home with a wet sail. So most teams, I guess, if their best players are out of the team, it takes a little bit of gloss off. It's easy to say next person in, but those next players in aren't as good as the best players. And if you've got those best players out, and there's a significant amount of them, and the weight of numbers tend to tip the wrong way. And I just think if this pre-season so far, touch wood, the best players have been available for the Swans, and that's a good sign.
What's it look like, Timo? Speed is king at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not a massive believer in the speed conversation. That we can all play in different ways. But from a Sydney point of view, you've got to remember, no disrespect to Dean, but Horse was a big figure, still is a big figure. But he finished up pretty late, post-grand final. So this has been Coxie's full pre-season. It's his team now. I reckon coaches always almost at their best in their second year. They've established the culture and where they want to see things. So the next phase will be what do they do with this forward line, with Curnow, and we'll look at some vision here. And look, it's a very small sample size, to be honest. And I did notice when Warner and Heaney are forward, they'll go deep because of the rotations. You see Heaney at the back of Curnow there, and he'll play higher. So there's certain moments in the game where you'll see him up the ground like we did with the Blues. And then there's probably this next clip where it's a centre bounce, it's a pretty good clearance. I don't know if he had this supply last year. He's probably got 10 to 15 goals just through these types of plays where, as a forward, Garry, if you can get one or two of those a game where it's just put it right here for me, that's the benefit that he'll get.
Yeah, he wasn't getting that last year.
No, and the Blues, Horse, what have you seen with them?
Yeah, Simo, there's been some shifts. If I just looking from the outside in, and one of the things we've seen is a little bit more purpose going into their forward half. Particularly, we talked about it last year in the segment, the launch pad, and they seem to be having a real concerted effort for that, and then to kick the ball inside 50 a lot deeper, those deeper entries, and coming from the back half, there just seems to be a lot more change of angles. There's shifting the ball around a lot, really making it harder to defend by taking the ball inside, shifting and getting it forward. So I think there's been it looks from the outside to be a real change, and it looks so far that it's been working across the pre-season. The players seem to be really enjoying that.
Now, I'm not privy to this type of part of the game plan, but you can sort of see here this back half transition. I think they did this pretty well last year, but failed to connect inside 50. So no doubt one of the marginal gains you'd think that the Blues are chasing this year is some of these connection pieces.
I think they took, the thing that interested me in that game was, say, Charlie goes out and what's it look like? They took 7 inside 50 marks in the first quarter in that game.
Yeah, right.
So that straight away says, OK, there's an opportunity here, not only for the kicker, but there's an opportunity for others that maybe once upon a time looked at Charlie, looked at Harry and said, it's not me. Well, now it is them.
Yeah, and it looks to be a bit more skill in that front half as well. So delivering's important.
We'll take you to the Brisbane Lions next. Adam Simpson and John Longmire on duty. This time tomorrow night, the countdown to the season opener, the Sydney Swans and the Blues at the SCG. It's a sellout. It'll be a full house. It'll have a huge audience and a lot of expectation rides on it. Tomorrow night on Fox Footy, the Swans. 3 grand finals, 2 premierships, and every conversation around 2026 starts with the Brisbane Lions. John Longmire, what are you thinking on what Fags has done so far and what they still might have in them?
I've got a huge amount of admiration for Chris Fagan. He's clearly one of the best coaches in the competition. He's experienced, he's done a number of roles. He knows what it's all about to go deep in September. And one of the challenges when you do go deep every year, and particularly year on year like they have, is things like injuries and you know, a lack of pre-season minutes can really count after 2 or 3 years. I think they've got the advantage of having some real quality, high-quality young players coming in that'll help counteract that. And I think those younger players are, you know, not just young, but they're high-quality players, and they've come into the team now, and they look as though they don't need a big pre-season. They just need a bit of, you know, topping up over that pre-season to be ready to go again. And I think their older players are mature enough. I think they're going to be another threat this year just because of the talent on their list and the way they're coached. I think they've got a great mix.
We'll plot their course throughout, I'm sure. All right, the ruck rule has us all intrigued. What's going on at Clubland? What are the ruckmen thinking themselves? How will it be adjudicated?
Go on. We showed some vision last year of the centre bounces and how it was getting a bit boring. You know, the rucks were just jumping into each other and the mids were just working off, and it was a craft sort of situation. And secondary stoppages were around 15% centre bounces. So this new rule, not only is a ruck change, but also the full forward now doesn't have to start in the goal square at the other end. So there's a bit of a change. And we've heard a bit more about the ruck horse and what you've seen from the ripple with the ruck rule. What have you seen at the moment?
I think that there's going to be genuine, a real red light on the amount of PCL injuries that may or may not happen. Well, we have to keep a real eye on that. And I think if there's one, that's okay. There's 2, that's okay. But it starts to get 3 or 4 PCL injuries over the course of the year. They may look at maybe bringing that circle in a metre just to make sure that that run up isn't there, and they don't get that same momentum up at the CBs. But there's no question, Simone, you've done a bit of work with what's happening at ground level, that the players at ground level are really on the move and a lot more aggressive than what they were last year.
Yeah, so it's only a small sample size, and we've looked at a few games. We'll bring the vision up now, and we'll look at the Brisbane in particular, who didn't have a great night in the middle, mind you, but the ability to get on the move now the ball, it's getting at the highest point. There's more a dynamic movement, and we used to have a bit of a theory back at West Coast about balance, communication and movement was an important piece, and you can just see players flying around everywhere now at these centre bounces, whereas last year it was really about your craft and where you could position the ball. And this one in particular, Dunkley does a great job of replacing Ashcroft, who takes off, gets ahead of it, but then he comes and supplies a bit of support in that space there. So we're noticing a lot more movement around the circle, and the best players in particular, they'll read these cues really well. I think the Swans have been the best at this type of play, and Grundy in particular, his ruck craft's been exceptional. So there's a little bit of work to do for the Blues this weekend. And it doesn't mean you get a goal from these plays, but every now and then the ball spits out, your winger gets a hold of it, your half-back gets a hold of it, and then you do some damage. So, yeah, just dropping 5% from secondary stoppages is a big tick from a clearance and a score some stoppages point of view.
What's your second clip?
Well, this is just your good players. And Horse, you know, you get your best players playing, and Walsh, he gets his craft here right. And then from here, it's just over to him. And what he does from this play here is exceptional, and hopefully we see this on the weekend. The next clip is about how you get the half-backs involved. I reckon Horse we just pause it here, I reckon 5 to 10 years ago, the defenders started to come in front of the forwards off the back of the square. I'm not sure who started it, but it would have been 5, maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah, about 6 years ago, I reckon, Simo, the half-backs, rather than sort of back shoulder, which has been the traditional case, started front shoulder and then got on the fly, essentially. So they really backed up the other 5 defenders to be able to get the job done if required. But they're attacking half-backs, and I think you've got a clip of Noble from the Gold Coast really getting on the move, and that can be really hard to stop.
Yep.
Terrific.
So we've just finished this up. Yeah, look, you see Noble come off the back of the square here, and he got involved with 2 or 3 scores from this particular bit of play. So it's not just the mids, it's the half-backs, the half-forwards involved, and Gold Coast kicked 5 goals, 3 from this night, so they had a good night.
All right. Simo, Horse, great stuff. Horse, enjoy the season launch. We'll talk to you next week.
Good on you guys.
All right, let's see how opening round goes, shall we? Boys. Adam Simpson and John Longmire with us on a Wednesday night on 360. Our coaches booked in for Monday. Brad Scott as the Bombers look toward their season opener against Hawthorn, and Damien Hardwick will have his sons underway. We'll be there on Friday night, and then Dimmer joins us in the follow-up. Since our inception, the players have taken us on the journey of the season. Nick Dacos has joined our suite of players for 2026, along with Josh Dunkley and Jordan Dawson. We've got the young stars back, those who have faced their challenges, unashamed favourites, Errol and Took and Andrew Brayshaw, those who have seen it all, Dangerfield and Green, the tumults that Zach Merritt has been through, and those who can lay claim to the next big thing. Ed Richards is there. So Players' Night on Tuesday throughout the season on 360. Every Monday we'll start with the awarding of the GVPs. Ford has a major announcement to make before you cast your votes for real. You've made a little adjustment.
Yes, a tinker. We've gone the 5-4-3-2-1. It's three votes over the whole round. We just need to. So this is what it would have looked like. I had a practice, and bear in mind, I only watched about half the games. I thought Jagger Smith was superb. Zach Bailey is in for a year. Josh Tracy, he might kick 75 goals. Butters looks like he wants to be the best player in the comp, and Tim English. The game, I did that game and commentated it. He was unbelievable. They don't count.
They don't count.
That gives you a little idea. At least we get a bit more scope.
You've got a little fault line there, I suspect.
Got a little bit of scope. Favourites will still get a good look in.
Good on you. See you tomorrow night.
We're back again.
We are.
Okay.
Let's head on the couch with Jack Revolt.